Welcome everybody to today's episode of our PiXL Drone Show, the podcast where we talk to industry professionals about how they use drones in their space. Our hosts are Kara Murphy, Greg Reverdio, and myself, Haya. If you're new to the show, please be sure to subscribe. And today our guest is Billy Kyle, who I'm sure you know from his countless YouTube videos. I think he's been uploading for the last 4 or 5 years. Must be in the hundreds by now. I've known Billy since 2017 when I worked on another website with Billy together for a short while. And last week, Billy and I caught up in Philadelphia, and we had the chance to not just catch up, but also talk drones and some other plans that we may have in the future. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Billy. I know you're not just doing YouTube videos at this point, but also some commercial drone work that we would love to talk with you about. Can you tell us a little bit how you got into drones and how you got started with flying drones and then launching your YouTube channel?
Yeah, well, so, as of right now, I'm 23. I've been uploading videos for about 5 years. So when I first got into it, I was just graduating high school. And I had this job, during the summertime and after school where I would make pizzas, I'd make cheesesteaks, I'd do the register. So I was working at a small pizza shop. And I had saved up all this money over the summer to, bring with me to college. And the smart thing to do would be to save that money and use it during college. But I said, no, I want to spend it all. So I bought a drone. I think that the Phantom 4 at the time was on sale. So I went to Best Buy. I got, the bundle that came with an extra battery. That was before they were even doing the Fly More combos with DJI. But so yeah, that's how I got started. I picked up that drone and they advertised them as being really easy to fly, but still like I was wondering like what it could do and what all the settings were and some of the different ways that you could use it. So I tried to find videos on YouTube and the ones that were on there weren't so good. So I thought, all right, let me do it on my own. Let me, figure out how to fly this thing and then make tutorial videos and the rest is history.
So there's never a typical day in the life of a drone professional, but could you walk us through maybe what a typical week looks like for you?
Well, a lot of the jobs that I do vary. I would love to try and specialize in one specific thing, but I've just kind of become like a jack of all trades. So there are some days where I'm doing like stockpile inspections. There are some days where I might be, capturing photos of like a facade or capturing photos of a roof for, say, there's one client that I have that they're like engineers. They tell people what's wrong with their building basically. So I'm kind of the middleman and I capture photos for them. And then sometimes on the other end of the spectrum, I'm shooting like real estate or empty plots of land for solar companies. So those are kind of like the projects I've really taken on in the past couple of months. I mean, really the first thing that it starts with is just making sure that you can fly. So I'm always using Kitty Hawk, Aloft. I'm getting references back from DJI's FlySafe database just to make sure that everything is going to go smoothly, because I've heard these horror stories of people that are working with their clients and at the last minute it's like, oh, I can't fly there. And it's like, you should just do that first. So usually it's all about getting prepared. So of course it's checking the airspace, it's charging your batteries, it's making sure that your drone even flies. I usually bring two with me. I've got the Air 2S and the Mavic 2 Pro in my bag right now because, if one propeller breaks, if one remote controller stick, is broken or something, you can't fly. So it's really good to have a backup. So a lot of it is just planning. And, once you get there, it's about executing that flight, which kind of seems like the easy part because the planning part can sometimes take a while.
Do you employ anyone at the moment? I know as YouTube channels get bigger, it's a bit more of a strain on editing and posting everything, and especially if you work on the side as well. So do you?
I've thought about it, and it's kind of tough because like I want to have control of everything from front to back. Like I don't want to farm off any sort of editing because I feel like that's a part of the style of my videos, even though they might just be more informational. And I feel like if I want to get it done right, I would just do it myself. So that results in a lot of long nights.
Sorry, I was just going to follow up. I know exactly how you feel because a couple of years ago I had to hire an editor to edit our course, and I've done it myself forever before that. And I was like, I don't think I can find someone who can do the style and do the things like I did. And actually, I did find someone. So you may, if you look, you may find someone that you like that can do the same work that you do.
Yeah, and maybe even better too, right? They can introduce things that you wouldn't even know about unless you met up with that person. So there's definitely some upside.
Yep.
Before I launch into my next question, I was curious, what kind of editing software do you prefer?
So I bounce back and forth. I have bounced back and forth between Final Cut Pro and Premiere. I'm pretty much on all of Apple's products, so using Final Cut Pro is really nice. I was hoping, like probably a lot of people were, that with these new M1 iPads we could have Final Cut Pro, which is unfortunate that they didn't introduce that. But I'm kind of sucked into that Apple ecosystem, and Final Cut Pro has me even deeper into the ecosystem. Just being able to use Apple-made software with hardware kind of alleviates the hiccups. I see people complaining about Premiere all the time on Twitter, so I'm kind of happy that I'm in the Final Cut Pro camp.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I'm trying to decide. I have Adobe Premiere Pro, but I
Mm.
never know if it can be really complex. So it's good to hear that
Yeah.
you're in Final Cut Pro and
I mean, for me, it's like, are we making feature films here, or are we just, making videos for people to consume on the internet? I know that Premiere has a really powerful suite between After Effects, between Media Encoder, between Premiere. But at the end of the day, just for the videos I'm creating, Final Cut Pro is perfect. I don't need that extra horsepower that Premiere has, I guess you could say.
yeah, that makes sense. So
Mm.
what does it take to be successful on YouTube? Is there anything that you can share that you've learned along the way about structuring your videos for maximum engagement?
Yeah, it's definitely about consistency and allowing people to understand like what to expect. So, with my channel, I don't want to deviate away. I mean, sometimes I do. I'll make like a review on like a phone or something like that, but it just doesn't get the same engagement. So it's about understanding what the audience wants to watch. I can almost tell before I upload a video if it's going to do well or if it's going to do poorly. Sometimes those poor videos I still make because maybe I have an agreement with a brand. Maybe it's something that's like a passion project and I just want to create it. So I think that consistency is huge to maintain a following and to continue to bring more people in the door, and even to just get started. Because if you just post a couple of times a month and you have 100 subscribers, it's not going to be the best way to gain traction. And even if someone stumbles across your channel and they say, "Oh, this guy's only uploaded 3 times," maybe they won't hit the subscribe button. So consistency is big, as well as just understanding what your audience wants to see, so that it's kind of like a win-win for everybody. You get the views, and they get to watch what they want. So
What kind of videos, Billy, tend to be the most popular on your channel? I mean, is it always let's say tutorials or reviews do really well, or is there also the oddball where all of a sudden this one video just takes off and you have no idea why that happens?
yeah, it's funny. The one video in mind that I did recently, relatively recently, was when DJI was added to the embargo list. I forget exactly what the term is, but yeah, so me and Ken just did like a off the cuff, like, hey, let's talk about it. And I think that video got like 100,000 views overnight. So, sometimes it's about like catching like relevant news, catching some sort of trend. That you uploaded that video of the DJI factory tour and it did really well for your channel. So sometimes you don't know, but for me, I know that it's like whenever I'm talking about something new with drones that maybe not many people have, I know that those videos will usually do pretty well.
Yep. What kind of equipment do you have? What kind of camera, lens, software? Software we talked about already to create your videos. I'm sure you have a setup. You have a beautiful screen set up behind you with, I'm sure, is a piece of paper. Is it a painted wall, piece of paper?
It's just a painted wall. I like to keep my set fairly clean. I pretty much have like a white gray table, a white backdrop. I'm using just like an aperture softbox light and a Sony A7 III to capture my videos. I have a Audio Technica mic. I don't know the exact model, but I like to keep it as clean as possible. I use some like moving blankets just to kind of dampen the sound around me here. But this is where I shoot my videos. It's a little bit different because we're doing this live, but I kind of feel like with my videos, it's very information based. So I try to kind of cut out like personal stories and even distractions. So when somebody comes here, they're not distracted by something behind me. It's just, hey, you're here for the information. Let's talk about this drone.
Yeah, it's nice and clean. I like it.
Thank you.
That makes a lot of sense. Where do you see your channel going in the future? I mean, if you take your YouTube channel, let's say 4, 5, 6 years into the future, what would you like it to be at that point?
I almost want it to be exactly the same. I mean, something that I would like to implement is more vlog style videos. We were talking about this when we met up. I've been doing some traveling recently, and I'd like to share the photos and videos that I shoot with my drones because, there kind of seems like to be these different camps with drones. Like there's the commercial side of things, there's the FPV side of things, there's, the photographers and the videographers. But I kind of want to make my channel like the central hub for anything drones. I think that somebody who flies FPV has a respect for somebody that can shoot really great aerial photographs, and someone that might only do thermal inspections and is still interested in drones might say, wow, those FPV drones are cool. So I kind of want to make it like a central hub for anybody with drones that likes to shoot photos or videos, or if they do it for work, it's a place that they can come and just, check out what's new in the drone industry and maybe see me have fun with, whatever I'm flying.
Yeah, that'd be cool for sure.
Mhm.
I know when we met up in Philadelphia and we spoke, I know you got your Part 107 I think a couple of years ago already, but you told me also that you're doing commercial drone work now and mostly flying the DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced. Can you tell us a little bit about what made you also transition into that field and how you combine that with your YouTube work?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is about the money, right? Like you can make more money with, I guess you could say, the higher end equipment. Unfortunately, I haven't done many like thermal jobs. I really want to try and get my thermography uh, certification or whatever they call that. I mean, typically the jobs that I've gotten is like I'm the middleman, so I'm working for somebody that has their thermography license. They're able to read these images and create reports. So I'm just the guy with the Part 107 that shoots the photos. But there's definitely, more money to be made, with the higher end equipment. So someone that's using an M300 isn't going out for a job that's like $250. They're probably doing a pretty large job with a, relatively large contract. And the Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced really blends a lot of like what DJI's drones, what we've seen in them recently, into a really great small package. So it takes that awesome body style of the Mavic 2 Pro. It's, I wouldn't say that's flawless, but it's proven to be a true workhorse. It takes the camera from the Mavic Air 2. It's really high resolution. You can zoom in 32 times with it, so it's great for inspection work. And then of course that new DJI made thermal sensor, because they're not working with FLIR anymore, is great. It's such an upgrade over the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. So yeah, I mean, at first I was making YouTube videos. I'm like, hey, I've got all these drones laying around. Why don't I try to make some extra money with them on the side? And that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think you're right that the Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced is pretty much the workhorse. I mean, it used to be, I think, the Phantom 4 more so, but I'm not
Mhm.
sure if we're going to go back there.
How often do you travel for assignments?
It's actually been quite frequently recently. So just recently I was up in Utica filming for like a TV show, like just doing some drone shots around the town. It's a show that premieres on A&E, which is pretty cool. And then I did another project a couple of weeks ago where I did like this big loop throughout all of Pennsylvania, just shooting these open fields for a solar company. Before then, I didn't do too much traveling for work. I think the furthest I've ever gone is like Florida, but I just graduated from college about a year ago. And I kind of have the travel bug. So it's just cool to get those projects in different areas and being able to go there. And, you can make some money while doing it, but it's also like, hey, I get to see this brand new area. And of course, with the drone, it's just like fun to explore. So on that downtime, I went over to Syracuse and I shot some photos of the city, and it was like cool because I'd never been there before. And just putting the drone up allows you to see the whole entire city from one view. It's really cool.
Yeah. Besides the ones that you've mentioned already, what other drones would you consider for your line of work?
Oh man, really at this point, a lot of things from DJI I'd recommend. I mean, I was just with one of my buddies and we were talking about the Mavic Pro. I mean, the drone that came out 4 years ago, maybe even longer than that. It was back in 2016, and like you could still achieve a lot with that drone. There might be certain restrictions or certain requirements for certain jobs. Like, someone might say, hey, I really need you to shoot in ProRes RAW. So then you would need like an Inspire 2, or they might say, hey, I really need 20 megapixel images, not 12 megapixel images. So I think like right now, if I was to recommend a drone to anybody, whether it's for commercial work or just for personal use and fun, the Air 2S is such a good all-round drone. It's got that pro level camera from the Mavic 2 Pro, nice 20 megapixel sensor, even higher resolution for video at 5.4K, and O3 just knocks it out of the park. I mean, you can confidently fly that drone without losing connection. It's really unlike any other drone that I've used.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the one that I recommend to people the most as well, just because for the price range, I mean, you get so much out of it. It's just crazy. So that actually takes me into my next question, which is a good segment. DJI over the years had, the Mavic, the Phantom, the Inspire series, and all of a sudden, all of these drones are kind of falling by the wayside, and all we're seeing is the Mavic series being updated. What's your take? Do you think the Phantom series and the Inspire series is kind of done, and we'll see just a foldable, small, portable drone in the future?
Well, look, I hope not, because I think one of the biggest things that puts like companies like Autel and Parrot kind of in the hole is that they just have one drone, right? Like, and if I want a drone, I go to DJI and I've got this plethora of options. I think the biggest reason we don't see these upgrades in the Phantom 4 Pro or the Inspire lineup is like, who is going toe to toe with those drones? Everybody is trying to make these foldable drones, and nobody's trying to make a larger drone that competes with the Phantom. Sony's new drone kind of goes toe to toe with the Inspire series, but you need a whole entire different camera system. It's not like a camera that's designed specifically for a drone. So I kind of think that they're in a different weight class. But to answer your question, I personally think that there still is room for a Phantom line, because if you look at, we take this jump from Mavic to Inspire, it's a huge leap. They might be very capable in terms of what they can do, but just in perception and size, it's way too big of a jump in my opinion. So I still feel like there's room in the middle for something for the prosumer that wants something a little bit bigger, maybe something that's overall more powerful and carries a better camera. I mean, with that airframe, we've got the potential for, we've seen interchangeable lenses in leaks that apparently were for a one-off customer. I don't believe that. We've got these interchangeable lenses potentially. We've got the ability for larger sensors. I mean, micro four thirds sensor on something like that. So I hope the Phantom line isn't done, but the way that it seems, I mean, we haven't gotten a new drone in 5-6 years.
Yeah, and you can see on forums, you can still see people talking about the P4P being their workhorse.
Yeah.
It is a workhorse, and
yeah.
So
I have heard and read the same. A lot of people still appreciate the fact that you can grab it out of the air so easily, especially for instance people that are on moving platforms like sailboats and whatnot. Also, a mechanical shutter, I think, is a big separation. Like, there's no other drone in a lower price class that offers you that. Let's talk about the Mavic 3 and then let's say a potential Phantom 5. Would you prefer to see DJI to come out with a Phantom 5, or would you rather have them come up with a Mavic 3? And if so, for each of these drones, like what kind of features would you be looking for to get excited and pull your wallet out and pay first with your hard-earned money for some of these aircraft?
Yeah, so we spoke about this. I think that I could see them coming out with like a Mavic 3 and everybody's like, yeah, I've got to buy it. And then they're going to come out with the Phantom 5 like after that, because it's like an upgrade because it's bigger. And they're like, yeah, now I got to buy this. I mean, I think that the biggest thing I'd like to see in the Mavic 3 is longer flight time. I think the range is fine if they just keep 03 because it's so good. And even some sort of better camera system. And I think to myself, like, what would I want in a camera? I'd love to see them combine the functionality of the zoom and of the 1-inch sensor in the Mavic 2 Pro. So being able to have that optical zoom would be really cool, because there's a lot of times where I'd love to shoot at like a longer focal length, like 50 millimeters, and being able to just do that on the fly would be great. There's so many people that want interchangeable lenses, and that's great, but you've got to land and turn the drone off to change that lens. Why not give me optical zoom in the air? I can change it on the fly and I can get a good range in between, fully zoomed and fully wide. So I'm hoping that we kind of see some tech from the newer drones, like the new 03, maybe some upgraded optical avoidance sensors. In like a Mavic 3, I hope that they don't go down the Skydio route and make it like a follow me drone, because I think that the DJI drones are like a real drone flyer's drone. The Skydio is kind of like a, hey, let me have it follow me while I'm on the bike, because the controller's not all that good. But then moving from there on a Phantom, I'd love to see like some higher fidelity codecs on, like a bigger camera, like focus more on cinema or the photography aspect, because that's something that separates the Inspire series is ProRes or Cinema DNG. So being able to do that would really give the prosumer a reason to say, hey, I want to go with this larger platform because it's going to be able to record this higher fidelity codec than, say, a Mavic, a smaller foldable drone.
So a fast optical zoom lens for a Mavic 3, and then what, interchangeable lenses for the Phantom 5, perhaps?
Well, Well, look, I'd still like to see the optical zoom. I think that no matter what, at the end, any drone platform, I think that optical zoom is just more viable while you're flying around because it can be changed on the go, you know?
Autel's been in the news a lot lately with Randall Warnes as its new CEO,
Mhm.
and they're growing a team of pros, including John McBride, who we've had on the show. Do you see them taking more market share in the future?
Look, I hope that they do something because I've always seen them as a really strong second to DJI in the market, and I think that I don't know exactly what it was. I mean, in the back of my mind, I almost want to call it like laziness. Maybe not laziness, but I feel like maybe Autel was just complacent with where they were. They made a really solid product. They had great software. It rivaled DJI, and they sold a lot of them because obviously, DJI scares some people away with geofencing and stuff of that nature. Autel has this American brand kind of in their back pocket, even though they're Chinese like DJI is. But I'm really excited to see what they do over the coming, years. I hope that they become an even stronger second and kind of, compete with DJI for that top spot. I just wonder, in terms of longevity, like I think that DJI has a lot kind of stored behind closed doors, ready to fire off at any time. So, Autel's playing catch up against somebody that's had so many years kind of cruising in cruise control in first place. I think that they're doing some really interesting things. And it's funny, like as soon as these changes started happening, I'm like, wow, my Autel Explorer app is really getting a lot of updates. So it's cool to see that, like, even right from Jump Street, they're kind of trying to make things better. So I'm looking forward to a really solid future with them.
Yeah, I think they are trying to make a change, so that's good.
Mhm.
I saw your video on the Sony AirPeak, and you mentioned the AirPeak earlier. What's the most exciting part about this, other than the 12 minutes of flight time? Sorry, I had to say
Well, what
that.
you're excited to just fly for like 12 minutes, land,
No,
change,
no.
land, change. I'm kidding. I mean, look, battery life in these larger drones is always a question. I mean, even with the Inspire 2 with the X7 camera, I think that it's around 16 minutes. So you're not going to get these long flight times, mainly because of that payload that you're carrying. There's a lot of things I'm excited for about it because Sony is such a large electronics company that this drone can completely flop. They can get a ton of feedback from people that buy it, people that are in the industry, and then they come out with like a second version that addresses all of those issues. So if it's a flop, I'm not too worried about it because they've got that capital from their other very successful sectors in their company to create something that's even better. I think the thing I'm most excited for is that now, like my great Sony cameras, I can fly them, like I can put them up in the air. DJI makes great cameras, but for those instances on a higher end shoot where I've got to try and match the colors to my DJI camera, to my Sony camera. Look, I've gotten better at it over the years, but it's just something that would kind of take out that extra step and would all look coherent. Um, I think the one thing I'm a little bit worried about is like you're wasting a lot of weight putting a Sony camera up in the air. Think about inside of a Sony camera, how much could just be eliminated and we could still fly it. We've got batteries in the camera, we've got a screen on the camera, buttons on the camera. So that's why I like DJI's approach, where it's just the lens and the sensor. It pulls power from the drone. You don't need all that extra stuff. So I think that this is almost like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. But I think that it's a good start for someone like myself that would love to put a Sony camera up in the air. And, even with like that A7R4, shoot like a 61 megapixel aerial photograph, that would just be great.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think they should be changing the system so that it can carry any camera? I mean, I love Sony, but I'm not a Sony guy. I'm a Panasonic
Mhm.
guy. I would love to put my GH5 there on the camera GH5S, but that's just not an option at the moment. Do you think they'll take more market shares if they were to do this?
So that's a question that I wonder because it's almost like you look at Teslas and how they're opening up their supercharger network to other cars other than them, right? So, Sony could probably sell a whole lot more of these drones if, like you could use your Panasonic camera on it. I could see them at first limiting it to just the Sony ecosystem. I think it would kind of be a win for Sony guys because, guys and girls, because they can say, hey, now I can purchase this drone for my camera and it's because I'm in the Sony ecosystem. It's like having all Apple products. It's another benefit. But, I think that they'll do that at first to work out the kinks of the drone. Like, hey, this is our first generation drone. I think that as they continue to work out some of the things that are wrong with it, that that we don't even know yet, but let's say they increase the flight time, they improve the software. I hope that from there they can work with other camera manufacturers and open it up, because then it's not like such a niche product.
Yeah, I do too. I agree.
I I know, Billy, that you've made quite a few videos on the Skydio 2 drone and that you've had one for a while. Two things I want to talk about. One, of course, is the autonomy of these drones. But before we get there, I want to go back to the crash that you had where the drone all of a sudden just nose dived into the water. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened there and how Skydio responded? And also, I think in terms of customer support, Skydio did a great job, which is something the DJI might learn a thing or two from. But can you talk us through that whole episode, please?
Yeah, so I wanted to do a video where I was tracking the car, and out in Jersey, there's like the Pine Barrens. So, it's nothing but like trees, and there's a couple of like I'll call them maybe fully used cranberry bogs, like they're just not in use anymore, but they're open to the public. So you can go there. There's people that fish, there's people that drive their cars around. I go there for photography because it's just, beautiful landscape. So I thought, look, it's dirt gravel roads, nice and open. There's a couple of challenging spots. Let's take the Skydio out. So we had it following the car. My buddy Steve was driving, and it performed really well, even in some of the more difficult spots. It was really making a good job of going underneath of certain trees, maybe going up and over trees to keep up with us as we were driving the car. And we went through a really difficult patch where the drone just totally lost us. But it was cool because it came shooting up over the trees, finally got back over. I was like, yeah, awesome. I was out of the car at this time because I had to go back to try and find it. So as I'm walking back to the car, I hear it speed up behind me, like the motors really start screaming, almost like an FPV drone. And then I hear nothing, and I hear a kerplunk. And the drone, it was literally like kerplunk, like it sounded like that. So it took a nosedive right into the water, and I turned around, and I was just like stunned. My buddy gets out of the car, it's like completely quiet, and we're like, oh, what just happened, right? So I think it could have been because we were talking about this when we met up. I think that it was like a sheet of glass, so it got confused. There wasn't any running water. It wasn't like moving, so it just went right down to the water. And from there, I'm like, all right, let me take my shirt off. Let me take my shorts off. I'm going in there. I'm getting this, because they're cranberry bogs. They're shallow, right? They're probably maybe 2-3 feet deep. So what I decided to do was like stand right in line with where it went down. I put a pile of rocks, and I said, let's go to Home Depot. Let's get some waders. Let's go in there. We'll find the rock and then walk out straight. And as we were driving out, we saw this person driving in. He put his window down. We put our window down. We're like, hey, how's it going? He's, what you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm doing some fishing. We're like, hey, we lost a drone in the water. Would you mind helping us find it? And the guy already had waders on. He walked in there with a stick. He's feeling around for it. 5 minutes later, pulls it right up. And it was great. He was like, savior. I gave him like $100 as a huge thank you, because of course now I don't have to, I be without a drone. Of course it didn't work. It still turned on, but I don't think the gimbal was functional. Now, after I uploaded that video, Skydio reached out to me, and it got some traction. So of course they're going to try and follow up, but from when I spoke to them, they said that in this case, if this happened to anybody else, they still would have replaced it. So even though I've got my YouTube channel and they reached out to me, if you went to them because of an issue like this, they're happily going to take care of you, because it was a malfunction of the drone. I had no say in what it was doing at the time, and it's not like I put it in a dangerous situation. I was out in the open, and it just had a mind of its own. So.
You sent the original footage back to Skydio, didn't you?
Yeah, so I mean, I had that full entire video. I was luckily screen recording. I kind of had some audio going, so they were able to kind of see the whole entire thing happening. I also sent them flight logs off of the SD card inside of the drone. So I sent them those flight logs, but yeah, they took good care of me, which was nice.
When I watched the video, it almost seemed like the water was so flat, like a mirror,
Yeah.
that the drone might have been confused, thinking that the water was the sky and that up was down and vice versa. Is that what happened, or did Skydio not confirm exactly what the issue was?
They didn't confirm. And I see these videos of people taking their Skydio out over water, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like I'm done with water in the Skydio. Although I do want to go back to that same spot and give it some redemption and just give it a try, same spot, and see what it does. That'd be pretty funny. Yeah.
So that brings me to the second question. And Skydio, of course, built their entire drone and their whole offering around the drone being able to fly itself and avoid any obstacles. How much value as a drone pilot, and especially as a commercial drone pilot, do you see in that autonomy? I mean, is that something that's important to you, or is the importance much more focused on, let's say, camera quality, video quality, other characteristics?
Yeah, so I like it for specific reasons. For example, doing stockpile measurements, it's great because I get there and I just kind of push a button and the drone does its thing and I'm just kind of sitting there watching it. I go on my phone, check my email or whatever while the drone is just flying over this job site, capturing photos. So a certain level of autonomy is great, but I feel like where we're at right now is a really good sweet spot because there's a lot of fear, like say in the trucking industry, that autonomous vehicles are going to take their jobs. Could autonomous drones take the jobs of potential commercial drone pilots? I don't think that we have to worry about that right now because the technology isn't there. And of course, the regulation still stands that there has to be a pilot in command. Even though these airplanes like the Boeing 747 has autopilot, there still has to be two pilots in the cockpit, right? So I see autonomy as being very helpful. I don't see it as like an absolute must, but for certain jobs, it really does help out a lot, especially looking to work with this company doing 3D models of like apartment complexes, which are really big. And it'd be really tedious to like fly up and down and get really high resolution images of the building. So I'm going to try to use software to just, automate the flight process. So I think that camera quality for me is most important, and the drones, specs are more important. And I think autonomy is like a very close third.
Yeah. Have you had the chance to use the Skydio to fly underneath bridges and do that 3D modeling and the inspection software that they came out with recently, or no?
No, I haven't tried it, and I've really wanted to put it to use because I think that it seems pretty powerful. I just wonder how it would fit into my workflow, and the Skydio being the drone that it is, I just worry about sometimes maybe connection and stuff like that. So it's something I really want to try out, but I've just been so comfortable with what I'm using right now with my DJI drones that I haven't really made that switch or made the jump to try it out. But it's something that I really do have in the back of my mind that I want to give a go.
I want to switch gears a little bit, and the FAA has made a lot of changes in the last few months, from Part 107 to the trust exam, even the CBO guidelines recently. I don't see those topics being covered on your channel. Is this by design, or tell me a little bit more?
Well, I don't consider myself like an expert in things like that, unfortunately. I think that the FAA is doing an okay job. I mean, I think that they're making some good changes, but one of my biggest gripes is that, I need to shoot real estate photos and you need, this whole commercial pilot's license to fly a drone, the FAA 107. So I feel like they could do a better job. And it's not like I'm rebelling against them where it's like a boycott to not post any videos, but I see other channels out there that make these great FAA in-depth videos. 51 drones, Russ, right? He makes such good videos. They're so easy to understand, and I could just never match them. So I just stick to what I'm good at, which is, making tutorial videos about how to fly drones. I feel like that's where my knowledge is like, using them, setting them up, getting in the air, flight maneuvers, and things like that. And anytime that someone has an FAA question, I always direct them to Russ, because even though I could just regurgitate what he says and make a video and whatever, I think that his presentation just from top to bottom is so good. So I'll usually, direct people there because he's by far, in my opinion, the best guy on YouTube that's doing, I guess tutorial videos on FAA stuff.
I know you've recorded hundreds of videos, so this might be a little difficult to answer, but what would you say is your favorite video that you've created for your channel?
I've got a couple in mind. I think that one of my favorites was when I went to California and I got off the plane. It was kind of like a last minute trip to go and see my uncle with my family. And we get off the plane and whatever. And I look and I'm like, I only have 3 drone batteries with me and no charger. So I made a video about how I was out there with only 3 batteries. And I kind of like tried to get these all this footage and all these photos with just 3 batteries. And it was cool to be like, wow, this is everything I could capture with just 3 drone flights. It was like a real challenge. So that was a lot of fun. And it almost makes me want to keep doing those videos. Like, hey, I just went here and I have 1 battery and this is all I can do with this 1 battery. So that was cool. And one of the videos that I'm a little bit more happy with is my recent video on the camera of the Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced. Usually I look back at my videos and am just like my worst critique. But that one, I'm like, I'm pretty happy with this one.
So when you get on the field, you said you're working by yourself, and what do you find the most difficult to record all these videos on your own? I know I did that for a while, and now I have a crew that helps me, and it makes a huge difference. What do you think is the biggest challenge of doing that?
I think the biggest thing is trying to be the person in front of the camera while you're also trying to be the person behind the camera. The reason I really went with Sony is because their autofocus is great. So I don't have to worry about, hey, like, am I in focus? I came from a Panasonic G7, which the autofocus was just worthless on that camera. So I would use manual focus and I'd sit like an arm's length away and try to tap it to focus in. So I think that that's one of the biggest issues, is trying to be the person in front as well as behind the camera. Another thing that's kind of tough is like, bouncing back and forth between like having the mindset of like, hey, now I'm shooting, and hey, now I'm planning, and hey, now I'm editing. So I go and I shoot a video and I dump all the footage, and I'm like, I got to go back and shoot this. And I've got to totally switch my mindset, where if I could have someone helping me, it would kind of be like, hey, you're going to edit this video. I'm going to shoot this video. I'm going to send you everything as I'm shooting it. And if you need anything else, just let me know. And I don't have to switch my mindset out of shooting to editing.
Yeah, I hear you. The G7 actually was my backup camera for a long time for my courses,
Yeah.
and my second angle. And yeah, and even the GH5 for a long time, the autofocus was worthless. They've made updates and it's a lot better now, but
It is a
yeah,
lot better.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
I'm just invested in that Sony ecosystem,
Oh, I hear you. I've switched between the two, and I hate the systems in the menu in the back of the Sony compared to the Panasonic. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
why I
true.
stuck with them. It's better on the new one, on the A7S3. I think is the new menu is a lot better. How often do you get recognized in the street?
I think I can count on like my hands how many times. I'll tell you a funny story though. The funniest time, I was out with my girlfriend's family, and we were on a boat. We took a boat out to Block Island, which is a really cool little island in Rhode Island. And I just said island so many times. But we took a boat out there, and one of her uncles, who isn't really her uncle, but is kind of like an uncle figure, was like, messing with me like, oh man, you think you're a hot shot? You've got a YouTube channel. You think that you're all that? And he was obviously joking, but we're on this remote island, and this other guy's flying a drone. He's like, hey, I know you from YouTube. And I just looked over at the uncle, right? So it was like funny because like I'm in the middle of nowhere, and this is like the third time in my life that I'm getting recognized. And it was during that time. So that's just a really funny story that I think about. I looked at him and he was like, wow. He was like, all right.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I get pulled over by a cop in Sedona, and then he recognized me from one of the video that I did, and let me go.
That's awesome. Yeah, see, it works out in those really specific moments. There's a guy on YouTube. His name is David Dobrik. He posts like funny vlogs and stuff like that. And one of the jokes that he said, he was like, "Hey, do you want to go to the mall to get recognized?" Right? Like, I'll get recognized by people like, "Hey, you're that guy on YouTube." So me and Ken, my buddy Ken Dono, we always joke, we're like, "Hey, you want to go to the drone section Best Buy and get recognized?"
That would be a good video. See how long it takes.
Right.
You could have a counter, and then people are walking by just looking at you, like, and then doing double takes. Have hidden cameras.
There was another funny time where we were shooting. Me and my buddy were shooting some interior spaces for a construction company, one of which was for the police. And there was two police officers in there, and they were like, "Hey, you got some nice cameras. Like, oh, we fly drones. Oh, you fly drones too? That's cool." He's like, "Yeah, I got the Skydio too, but I saw this one video online of this kid's drone. It just took a dive bomb into the water." I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Tell me a little bit more about it." And we started going back and forth, and he's like, "Wait a minute, that's your video." It is great.
Hey, Billy, towards the end of the show, our traditional question at this point is, what is your favorite drone? Can be any kind of drone, any brand of drone. What is the most fun drone or the most favorite drone that you like to fly now?
We already talked about it, the Air 2S. That is like, so my Mavic 2 Pro is my backup, and it's a great backup, but I'm like contemplating like, hey, I might want to get another Air 2S as a backup, because when I make that jump from Air 2S to Mavic 2 Pro, the flight software is so much better and so much different. One of the biggest things I've noticed from flying both drones pretty extensively is that the vertical and horizontal speed of the Air 2S is like double that of the Mavic 2 Pro. So you feel like it's so much more powerful than it really actually is, because it is slower than the Mavic 2 Pro. But like when I'm on a construction site or a job site and I'm buzzing around, I mean, I can get from 400 feet down to 100 feet in 3-4 seconds. All right, maybe not that fast, but it feels like 3 or 4 seconds compared to the Mavic 2 Pro. Whereas when I'm trying to lower my altitude, I'm like, I'm gonna send some text messages while I'm waiting for this drone to come down because it's so much faster and it just feels so much more powerful.
So flight characteristics is a big thing. How about OcuSync 2 versus O3? Like how much of a difference is there?
That's another big change. And it's kind of crazy and I think that this is just a thing with technology. Like we saw that jump from Lightbridge to OcuSync. We're like, yeah, this is great. Then we saw the jump from OcuSync to OcuSync 2. We're like, man, how do we even ever use OcuSync? This 2.0 is so great. And now with O3 moving forward, it's like looking back at OcuSync 2, I'm like, how did I ever think that this was so great? So we see this with technology all around, and it's really evident with the Air 2S. Like if you have some extensive use of older drones, you'll know how important that transmission system is, because what's a great drone with a great flight time and a great camera if you can't fly it more than like 2,000 feet away, right? That's your limit. So
I agree. I think if a drone is natural and intuitive to fly, and also you don't have to worry about the transmission at all, I think that gives you a lot of confidence, and it makes it a much easier aircraft for people to deal with.
Absolutely.
But hey, Billy. Yeah. Hey, but I want to thank you for joining us today, Billy. It was awesome to have you here on our show and share your insights, both as a YouTuber as well as a professional drone pilot. I think a lot of people will find this very interesting to watch and to listen to. If you've been watching and listening to the PiXL Drone Show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. It helps us out a great deal. And of course, if you have any friends or family that you think should be watching this show, then please feel free to share. Thank you. We'll be posting this on Tuesday, and we'll be back soon with another PiXL Drone Show. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me. It was awesome.